Fellow Ghanaians, good evening, and thank you for having me in your homes once again. 2 weeks ago, we began the reopening of our schools as part of the phased approach to bring our nation back to normalcy following the outbreak of the novel COVID-19 disease in our country. Since that time, final year university students, SHS 3 and SHS 2 Go Track students have all returned to school. From tomorrow, Monday, 29th June, final year junior high school students in 17,439 schools across the country will return to school to prepare and sit for the Basic Education Certificate Examination, BECE. They will be the final and indeed the largest batch of students to return to school. In all, we're expecting some 750,000 persons, comprising 532,000 JHS3 students and 218,000 teaching and non-teaching staff and invigilators to be involved in tomorrow's exercise. To protect the lives of these students and all other personnel, government has put in place the relevant measures in consultation with the Conference of Heads of Basic Schools and Regional and District Directors of Education and Health. Like senior high schools, universities, and other tertiary institutions, all junior high schools across the country have been fumigated and disinfected. Additionally, we have procured and distributed 45,000 Veronica buckets, 90,000 gallons of liquid soap, 90,000 rolls of tissue paper, 40,000 thermometer guns, 750,000 pieces of 200 ml sanitizers, and 2.2 million reusable face masks, i.e. 3 per person, all with the intent of guaranteeing the safety of the students, teaching and non-teaching staff. 2 masks each will be delivered tomorrow, and the third within the next 2 weeks. I've been very impressed by the adherence to the enhanced hygiene and social distancing protocols by authorities and students in our universities and other tertiary institutions and senior high schools. Yes, there have been a few hitches surrounding the reopening, but largely they have been smooth and seamless. In these institutions, the washing of hands under running water, the maintenance of social distancing, the refrain from shaking hands and hugging, and the wearing of masks have become a part of the routine of school lives. We're determined to ensure the same level of conformity in our junior high schools. So through the District Directors of Education and the District Directors of Health, a COVID-19 sensitization program will be organized for all head teachers and their teaching staff from Monday, the first day of school. This will ensure that the do's and don'ts of the protocols are clearly spelt out for the head teachers for onward transmission to the students. JHS 3 students will be in school for 11 weeks of preparation and revision before spending the following week to take the BECE. There will be no more than 30 students in a class, and there will be a reduced school day with students reporting to school at 9 a.m. and closing at 1 p.m. No breaks outside the classroom will be permitted. Assemblies and sporting events are banned, and the use by outsiders of school premises for religious and other activities will not be allowed. As is the case for the other educational institutions, Each basic school has been mapped to a health facility, and care will be provided to the sick in these health facilities by nurses assigned to these schools. I assure all parents and guardians that government will not put the lives of 750,000 students, teachers, and non-teaching staff who will be returning to school from tomorrow at risk. We've made all the required provisions to protect them whilst in school. It bears repeating, however, that they must all adhere strictly to enhanced personal hygiene and social distancing protocols, regularly wash their hands with soap under running water, refrain from shaking hands and hugging, and wear masks to protect themselves and others. Our survival, I repeat, is in our own hands, and together we can defeat this virus. We all know that these are truly historic times. The world is reeling from the effects of this pandemic, and the things we took for granted some 6 months ago are now under question. The definite and undeniable had been replaced with uncertainty. However, as with any other form of hardship, there are always lessons to be learned, as there are opportunities for growth. What we have witnessed recently is that despite us living in an interconnected and globalized world, each nation ultimately stands alone in its challenge to protect its people. Nonetheless, it is obvious that international cooperation, where feasible and practical, can serve to complement the resolution of national challenges. In Ghana, from the very onset, government has acted to limit and stop the importation of the virus, contain its spread, provide adequate care for the sick, limit the impact of the virus on social and economic life, and inspire the expansion of our domestic capability and deepen our self-reliance. As of Saturday, 27th June, our country has recorded 17,351 confirmed cases, with 12,994 recoveries, representing some 75% of positives. This means that currently we have 4,245 active cases, having conducted 294,867 tests, one of the highest on the continent. 30 persons are severely and critically ill, and we have a total of 112 sad deaths, constituting 0.6% of positives, as we maintain one of the lowest death rates in the world. Fellow Ghanaians, as I have stated before, one of the key objects of our fight against COVID-19 has been to save lives and reduce the number of deaths. The Ghana Health Service has observed that most of the patients that have been lost to the virus died either on arrival at the hospital or within 48 hours after arrival. Unfortunately, we still have some persons in the country who are not taking the dangers associated with this disease seriously, and therefore do not seek medical help as soon as they have symptoms that suggest an infection of the virus. There should be no fear of stigmatization or embarrassment with being diagnosed with COVID-19. So please, when you begin to experience symptoms such as fever, persistent cough, bodily pains, loss of taste and smell, and difficulty in breathing, seek immediate medical attention at the nearest health facility. Most patients who are critically ill and need intensive care do indeed survive the virus if they seek medical help promptly. For example, out of 53 patients admitted into intensive care units at the Ghana East Municipal Hospital and the University of Ghana Medical Center since the pandemic struck, 44, i.e. 83%, have fully recovered and have been discharged. This is in part due to the immense dedication and hard work being exhibited by our health workers, who continue to care for those affected by the virus and for the sick in general. In recognition of their efforts, I announced during my fifth address to the nation on Sunday, 5th April 2020, an incentive package to motivate and express appreciation to all health workers for the months of April, May, and June. I'm happy to announce that I have decided to extend the incentive package for health workers by another 3 months. This means that all health workers will pay no income taxes for the next 3 months, i.e. July, August, and September. Again, all frontline health workers, as defined by the Ministry of Health, will continue to receive the additional allowance of 50% of their basic salary per month, i.e. for July, August, and September. I know the implementation of this directive for the months of April, May, and June has been fraught with some challenges, caused mainly by the protracted discussions over the definition of who qualifies as frontline health workers in this context. I have, however, been assured that they have now been resolved and payments will be effective from the end of June. I should reiterate that the insurance package for health workers is still in place. Whilst we appreciate the efforts of our health workers, I continue to urge them to remain professional and compassionate. Every avoidable death, be it corona-related or not, is a tragedy. Let us all be reminded in our daily routines that adhering to the enhanced social distancing and hygiene protocols will not only save our lives, but also prevent our healthcare infrastructure from being overburdened. Let us wash our hands with soap under running water. Use alcohol-based sanitizers. Maintain the protocols on social distancing. Avoid person-to-person contact. Eat our local foods that boost our immune systems. And yes, wear masks at all times when we leave our homes. These are the weapons of our battle. We must keep up our guard at all times and see to it that sooner rather than later, COVID-19 becomes nothing but a blip on our forward march to sustained development, progress, and prosperity. I've been very encouraged by how our religious leaders have supported and embraced the fight against COVID-19, despite their concerns with some elements of the prescribed safety protocols and guidelines. I will continue to engage with them and all other stakeholders in our efforts to defeat the virus. Enuanom, efiri ọchịna ekọ, yamma school for a JHS3, besan akọ school biom, akọtro won sohwe a etwato. Tise won nuanom mpanyimfo a SHS3 in the university. JHS3 for bedi na wotwe du baako ewu school. Ansa na won atro won sohwe no. Ese ye nyina ehu se Oman no koso ejina ye adusua so. Nti ensese ye didi hu agro. Maban no ayɛ nhyehyɛe a ɛbɛbɔ mmɔfra no nyinaa ho ban. Nti awofoɔ, ɛma moyɛ me nhyehyɛmmɔ. Ɛfiri sɛ ɔman Ghana nkɔsoɔ, ɛhia sɛ mmɔfra no nyinaa ɛbɛsua adeɛ. Anyame mɛ, kɛgye wɔ JHS3B yɛ Bayer School. Kone amɛyɛ kasani, kɛha amɛ exam ɛ. Tomo amenyami me onukpai ni yo SHS3 ke university. JHS3B Bayer ochi nyoma ke ekome ye school. Dani me baba na menma ame exam ɛ. Isane wo fe wono ake. Wo mano ya dumo ni kasemono. Nowe wo isani wo kesho. Woto gbejiano. Ni babu beke bie he no wo follow ye ka hanye muso ahyanye ejake Ghana no ya hia ni beke bi fe akaseni. Fellow Ghanaians, as we cross the halfway point of 2020, arguably one of the most difficult years in recent memory, I continue to feel a sense of gratitude, determination, and faith. Gratitude towards you, the Ghanaian people, who have shown such extraordinary grace and selflessness throughout this difficult period. Determination in my work for all of you, bringing Ghana through this crisis and beyond, and making sure we come out of this stronger than ever before. And faith in the one true God who orders our every step. This too shall pass. For the battle is the Lord's, and with him by our side, we fear nothing but his judgment and need nothing but his grace. May God bless us all in our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention and good night. Fellow Ghanaians, good evening. Tomorrow, 30th June 2020, the Electoral Commission will begin the process of compiling a new register of voters, which the Commission will use for the 7th December 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections. The compilation of a voters' register is one of the most important tasks in the effective functioning of any democracy, because if an eligible citizen's name is not on the register, that citizen cannot exercise the right to vote and cannot therefore participate in the determination of the choice of the government of the day. It is thus vitally important that all eligible voters register, so on the designated day of 7th December, they can vote to choose the president of the nation and the member of parliament of their area. In effect, our vote, our thumb, is the expression of our individual sovereign power as a citizen, which we should cherish and guard at all times. Our country, Ghana, is regularly cited as the shining example of the place in Africa where the electoral process works and where it is always being improved upon. We have had 7 consecutive presidential and parliamentary elections, which has given us 5 presidents in the 27-year history of the Fourth Republic, with peaceful transfers of power from a governing to an opposition party on 3 separate occasions. It is a record virtually without parallel on the African continent, which we should all treasure. All of these did not threaten the foundations of the state. And even when there was disagreement with the result of an election, it was the Supreme Court, rather than the streets, that determined its outcome. From tomorrow, in 33,367 polling stations across the country, we embark on yet another journey to deepen further our nation's democratic credentials as the exercise to compile a new voters' register to be used for the December 7 general elections commences. The hurdle which stood in the way of the new voters' register was surmounted last Thursday, 25th June, when a 7-member panel of the Supreme Court, presided over by the Chief Justice, in a unanimous decision, settled all the issues surrounding the voters' register. The decision affirmed the right of the Electoral Commission to proceed with the compilation of a new register in accordance with the provisions of Constitutional Instrument CI 126. It reiterated the widely held belief that a credible electoral register, and indeed a credible election, are important ingredients to securing the future well-being of any democratic nation. I am proud to be a citizen of a nation whose independent institutions, like the judiciary and the Electoral Commission, continue to operate without fear or favor, ill will or malice, and without regard to the political, religious, or ethnic affiliations of any citizen or group of citizens. There are some who have argued and continue to argue that in the midst of a pandemic, the compilation of a new register, and indeed the conduct of the parliamentary and presidential elections, should be put on hold and scheduled for a later date, perhaps when the pandemic ends. That is not possible. The Constitution of our Republic makes no provision for the extension of the mandate of the President, who wields executive power, beyond 4 years. To exercise executive power in the Ghanaian state, you must be duly elected by the Ghanaian people. You must have their freely expressed consent. On 7th January 2021, when my mandate as the current president expires, a duly elected person must be ready to be sworn in as President of the Republic. There is no other way. And in order to forestall any needless constitutional controversy which could throw our nation into jeopardy, we must vote on 7th December 2020. The same applies to Parliament. We should not fear or be alarmed. Despite the COVID pandemic, elections are being properly conducted in many nations across the globe. In Asia, we've witnessed the conduct of a successful election of South Korea in April, at the height of the pandemic in that country. In Europe last week, we've seen those of Poland. And in our own continent of Africa, both Mali and Malawi have preceded us in organizing successful national elections. Surely, it is not beyond Ghana to join these nations in organizing a successful general election, even in the midst of the pandemic. Fellow Ghanaians, we have chosen to govern our country according to the tenets of multi-party democracy and the principles of democratic accountability. And we dare not trade them off, more so during times of crisis. To guarantee the safety of all eligible Ghanaians at the 33,377 polling stations across the country, the Electoral Commission has put in place the necessary elaborate protocols as outlined earlier in the day by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jean Mensah. All these protocols should be adhered to strictly. Additionally, I want to remind all Ghanaians that all the other protocols and restrictions, especially those dealing with large gatherings, must be adhered to and enforced at the polling stations at all times. So let us all abide by them and conduct ourselves in a manner befitting the image and status of Ghana. So I urge all eligible Ghanaians, I repeat, all eligible citizens, that is, Ghanaians of 18 years of age or above, and of sound mind, no matter what party they belong to, if any, to go out and register so that they can exercise their civic responsibilities on 7th December to elect a government of their choice in a free, fair, peaceful, and transparent election. Using your God-given and constitutional rights costs nothing, but staying home can come at a very steep price. The pandemic notwithstanding, we have to strengthen Ghanaian democracy. It must be our collective duty to ensure that we have a register that is fit for purpose in December, and we must all make sure that persons who do not meet the requirements as set out clearly in the Constitution do not find their names into the register. If you aid the registration of an ineligible person and you are caught, you will face the full rigors of the law. The election on 7th December must be a Ghanaian election, not a West African election, conducted with a register of Ghanaian voters. That is the only way the true will of the Ghanaian people can manifest. It is crucial that both the registration exercise and the electoral process itself be conducted in an atmosphere of peace and security, devoid of intimidation and violence. The Ghanaian people must go about the exercise of their civic duties in peace and in freedom. The security agencies have assured me that they have made adequate preparations for this and to guarantee the sanctity of the process. They have assured me of their determination to carry out their duties without fear or favor. Improper behavior by any citizen, no matter their political color, will not be tolerated. And I'm encouraged by the recent reassurance by the Inspector General of Police that police have been instructed to be even-handed in their response to issues. That is the only way the rule of law can be upheld. The long-standing deployment of security personnel, especially the military, along our borders is another dimension of this process of guaranteeing the peace of the nation. Fellow Ghanaians, it is no secret that our neighbor to the north, Burkina Faso, has in recent times been at the receiving end of a number of terrorist attacks, as has another neighbor, Côte d'Ivoire. To shore up our borders against such attacks and to defend our nation's territorial integrity, the armed forces, at least since I came into office, have been very proactive in engaging in operations to secure our borders and foil any potential terror attacks on our soil. Operations such as Conquered Fist and Kwandungu have been going along for some time, since 21st February 2019, to meet this objective. Deployments of soldiers in areas along our borders have been regular, and residents living in border towns will bear testimony to this. Again, in the fight against COVID-19, I took the decision on Saturday, the 21st of March, to close all our borders by land, air, and sea. To ensure substantial compliance with this directive and to assist personnel of the Immigration Service, our eastern, western, and northern borders were shored up by some personnel from the military. This development, for example, during the period of the 3-week lockdown of Accra, Tema, Kasoa, and Kumasi, led to the arrest of some 5,000 persons along our borders who had entered our country illegally. Indeed, the first 6 recorded cases of COVID-19 in the Volta region, for example, were those of West African nationals who entered the country illegally. In total, 207 soldiers have been deployed along the borders of the Upper East region. 110 soldiers in the northern region, 102 in the northeast region, 98 in the Volta region, 72 in the Oti region, 69 in the Upper West region, 64 in Bruno region, 21 in Savannah region, and 14 in the Western region. Let me state, without any form of equivocation, that these deployments are not in any way intended to prevent Ghanaians from registering to vote in December. They are there for their express purpose, which is to guard our borders. That is the limit of their remit, and they will not be permitted to stay beyond that remit. I'm fully aware, like the military commanders, of the sensitivity of their deployments at this position in our history, and I'm confident that that sensitivity will be fully respected. I have no interest in disenfranchising any eligible Ghanaian from registering in tomorrow's exercise, nor am I interested in any improper machinations to win any election. I've spent my life fighting for free democratic institutions in our country, and I'll continue in that fight for the rest of my life. The idea of being a president who emerges from a rigged election is abhorrent to every fiber of my being. I want to continue to be the president of a Ghanaian people who have given me their free consent with the blessing of the Almighty. So please, once again, if you are 18 years of age and above and are of sound mind, from tomorrow or the appointed time, go to your polling station and register. If you do not register now, you cannot vote in December. Present your Ghana passport or card, which are the only 2 forms of valid identification. In the absence of any of these valid IDs, an applicant can submit one completed identification guarantee form endorsed by 2 registered voters to be registered and issued with a voter ID card. By these procedures, all eligible voters will be registered. No disenfranchisement of voters is contemplated by them. Together, and adhering to the safety protocols at the polling stations, let us demonstrate that even during a pandemic, we in Ghana continue to be a beacon of democracy on the continent. Our democracy, requires not a unity of ideas or political allegiances, but a unity of commitment to the Ghana project, the free, democratic, open, prosperous, and united nation, respectful of human rights and the rule of law, that animated our forefathers to make the sacrifices for the liberation of our nation from foreign rule, that has bequeathed to us our beloved Ghana. May God bless us all in our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention and have a good night.